On the show in Wheelspin, we drive the new Audi Q3. In Launchpad, we have a look at the new Audi RS6 as it makes its appearance in the Indian market. And in Going in Style, we get an exclusive peek into the AMG factory.
One thing that you have to admit about brand Audi is that they offer their customers plenty of style, and that is reflected right across their product range, including the car that I drive today, the Q3 in its latest iteration after she just got a facelift. Even as you unlock the car and you see the lights flash, you know that Q3 is really one stylish SUV. Now let's have a look as to what the changes are both inside as well as outside. And this is Audi's way of attempting to solve the midlife crisis that the Q3 was going through and give it a new lease of life. And in the process, what the Q3 now gets is an entirely new front end, including a new front grille with this 4-ring sitting proudly in the center and matte finish on the sides of it. And of course, the lights too are new, and these are LED headlamps with integrated running lights. So overall, if you look at this Q3 now, you realize that this has become a lot more pleasant to look at. And of course, I think this will add to the style quotient of this new Q3.
In fact, it is this three-dimensionally styled single-frame grille which really differentiates this new Q3 from the old one, as it makes the car look much bigger and wider than it really is.
And if you happen to look at it from the side, the first thing that you will of course notice is the 17-inch alloy wheels. And these alloy wheels are of course new design, and this gives the car a nice sporty stance too. But overall, in terms of the dimensions, the length, breadth, height and even the wheelbase, it remains identical to the old outgoing one. So not much change there in terms of dimensions.
At a little over 4.3 meters and a wheelbase of 2.6 meters, the Q3 is as big or as small as any of your mid-size sedans. But it is the tall stance and the brilliant coupe-style design which makes the Q3 an attention grabber and makes it easily the best-looking SUV in the country in its category.
In terms of the engine and the mechanicals, this Q3 remains identical to the old one. This is powered by a 2-liter turbo diesel injection engine which churns out 177 brake horsepower and 380 Newton meters of torque, which is pretty good for a car this size. And it gets to the 100-kilometer mark in just a little over 8 seconds. The engine is mated to a standard 7-speed S-tronic Audi gearbox, which is pretty refined in terms of performance, and the gears slot in quite nicely. But what you additionally get in this Q3 is these paddle shifts, which will help you downshift or upshift much faster just to increase that sporty feel in that car. And also you get 3 driving modes, the dynamic, the auto and the comfort. And depending on your driving style or the mood you are in, you can choose either of them. But of course, it is the comfort which is meant for everyday driving. In fact, if you spend some time behind the wheel of this Q3, I'm sure you're going to like it because the drive is quite nice. The engine is refined, the power comes in pretty linearly, there is no turbo lag in this, and of course the gears slot in very well. Overall the suspension is a little bit tight, but then that's not too bad if you compare it with the other SUVs around. In fact, what this slightly harder suspension setup does is give this car nice cornering abilities, and keep in mind this is an Audi, so you got to have the Quattro, and it is the Quattro which makes a big difference. Quattro of course means the permanent all-wheel drive, which means that depending on the need, the power is shifted from one wheel to another to ensure that this car grips the road very well, even on extreme cornering. And this is what makes this Q3 one of the best handling SUVs around. I know if you drive a luxury expensive SUV, you are not inclined to take it off the road too much, because just in case things go wrong, it would be frightfully expensive to fix it. So you are better off sticking to the tarmac. But then there are days like this, it's rained a little bit, it's beautiful, and what beckons is off-roading. And to do that, you need two things. One is a high enough ground clearance, which I believe this Q3 has at 177 millimeters. And the second thing is a four-wheel drive, which again this Q3 has in the form of the Quattro, or the all-wheel permanent drive. So time for me to see how this really works.
A torquey engine ensures that you have adequate power when you drive off the tarmac. Plus, of course, it does clear the small hurdles quite easily with enough ground clearance. And what I would say is that even though I will not quite go into the wild with it, but for an occasional off-road excursion, it seems good enough. And of course for the regular bumps on our everyday driving, including the skyscraper high-speed breakers. And this is where the advantage of an SUV like this clearly shows itself.
In the old Q3, I think one of the biggest drawbacks was the interiors. It did look a bit dreary and bland, and of course it lacked certain features like this shiny little bits here called chrome garnishing. But in this case, the company has really addressed it and liberally used chrome garnishing to liven up things, and it indeed has, and it made the Q3 here look much better. And then there are addition of features like this, a retractable 6.5-inch display for the multimedia. And this is going to give you a host of information that you might need while driving. I'm not much of an information junkie while at the wheels, but in case you are, it's bound to please you, because it's got features like voice activation, which means that if you do sync in your phone, you can call whoever you want. Pretty much a waste of time in my opinion if you're driving a nice car, but then it's up to you. The steering wheel here is adjustable for height, but not for reach, and the instrumentation here is well laid out, but nothing very funky, very basic, but at the same time it does give you all the information. And the seats are nice, well bolstered. I like the seating position, and these seats are of course power assisted, which means that you have power buttons all around to find the right adjustment. When you are at the wheels of this new Q3, you feel quite reassured because the seating position is quite high and it gives you a nice view of the surroundings, and when you are driving on the highway, you feel very confident. And while at the wheels, if you do need a breath of fresh air or some sunlight, then the company has given you the right option for that. This one comes with a nice panoramic sunroof, which at the touch of an electric button opens up and lets plenty of air and sunshine come into the cabin.
What the new Q3 also gets is a reversing camera and the Audi sound system with 10 speakers. And what I like best is that it comes with 6 airbags to make it as safe as it gets, in addition to the electronic stabilization control for dynamic safety. The seats are comfortable, and what you get is enough space for an average size adult. But squeezing in 3 people in the back seat will definitely make you wish that you were a skinny kid instead of an overgrown adult. But what you get in the boot is plenty. 460 liters to gobble up your bags, and plenty more if you trade in your rear seat passengers for luggage space, because the rear seats fold down to make it over 1300 liters, and that's a lot.
If you keep in mind the fact that this Q3 hasn't gone through a generational change, but only a facelift, then it will be much easier for you to live with these changes, because honestly the changes haven't been too many. But of course I must say that all the changes that have happened have only added value to this Q3. If you remember the old Q3, it did lack some of the bells and whistles and of course all the shiny chrome buttons that this Q3 has inside the car. So overall this Q3 has become more of a complete car now, and if the company doesn't really increase the price that much, then all these changes will be really worth it.
The Q3 will be launched later this month, so we don't have the exact prices, but chances are the price will go up as it does with all the facelifts, but hopefully not substantially. What you will get additionally is more trims and some new colors like the one we drive.
So, now, what do you think of this one? It's our newest edition, a performance car. You had a quick spin.
Oh well, I just sat inside the car and I couldn't believe the power.
Audi India is on a launching spree, and the latest to join in is this RS6, a sports coupe which is essentially a 5-door hatchback meant for all those who are looking for extreme performance from the cars. Powered by a TFSI 4-litre engine, this manic little coupe belts out a hopping 560 brake horsepower and a mind-blowing 700 Newton-meters of torque to propel the car from 0 to 100 in just 3.8 seconds. And it is these features which will put it into a high sports car bracket immediately. The engine is mated to a 8-speed multitronic gearbox, and the RS6 peaks off with a top speed of 250 km per hour. But it is not only the performance which will attract buyers, but also the finish and the features is what you can expect from a luxury brand. Leather seats, 3-spoke leather-wrapped multifunction steering wheel, Bose surround sound system, carbon fiber inlays, MMI navigation plus, a panoramic sunroof and everything else which will make it fun for everyday commute. So what you get in the RS6 is a car which will outperform many sports cars, and also a car which can be used regularly, as long as you are ready to fork out rupees 1.35 crores to park this in your garage.
Here is a sleepy little village some 25 kilometers out of Stuttgart, and it's really easy to miss if you're driving by. But then, if you're a performance junkie, this is a place which will be like a mini Mecca to you, because this is where AMG is based. AMG, which powers many of Mercedes' cars. And today it's my turn to go right into the heart of AMG and find out what makes their cars so much fun to drive.
This was a special occasion as the rather reclusive AMG factory, in a rare gesture, opened its door for an exclusive shoot with us. A first for Indian television, and as I made my way inside, it was indeed an experience to see engines being made, or should I say hand assembled. Keeping in mind the AMG tradition of one engine being built by one engineer, starting from the empty crankcase to the time of filling it in with the engine oil.
Finally, I make my way inside the AMG factory, and one look here and you know it's a very different kind of a factory. It's clean, it's quiet, and you see very few people actually working here. After all, an AMG engine is handcrafted, and one person makes one engine, and the process starts right over here and ends when the final engine is signed off. So let's see how the actual process starts.
AMG started out as a performance house for tuning Mercedes cars for the purpose of motorsports, and the founders were two Mercedes engineers, Aufrecht and Melcher, and it came into existence in 1967 in Burgstall, from where it moved to its present location of Altaba in 1976. It was taken over by Daimler Chrysler, as the company was called then, in 1999. Since 2005, it has been a wholly owned subsidiary of Daimler AG.
Now I'm going to find my way to the first workstation and see where the engine really starts its life. And to do that, we have Matthias here. Matthias is going to make us an engine, and the first stop he has made here is to pick up the crankcase. This is where it starts.
What you see almost baffles you, because the overpowering reputation of the AMG brand had made me expect something much larger and perhaps more grander. But the factory here, which only produces the V8 and the V12 engines, is rather small. But then this is what is perhaps its biggest strength, because this, unlike the regular conveyor belt assembly line, ensures attention to minutest of details and personal pride and skill of the selected few who work here. But don't mistake size for either quality or quantity, because end of last year the AMG factory here still managed to produce around 47,000 units of its power-laced engines to be put into different models of Mercedes cars.
The empty crankcase was fitted with oil jets, and now it also has the crankshaft within two stations. Things are moving really fast here, and I think at this rate, this engine will be done in no time. This is actually the heart and soul of any engine, the pistons. And as you can see, even the pistons and the rings are fitted onto the cylinder block manually, using the skill and experience of the person doing it. After this is done, almost the entire engine is ready, barring the fitment of the turbochargers, the cover and the timing chains, etc. but your basic engine is ready at this point of time.
After the oil jets are put in the crankcase and the pistons, ring assembly and other parts hand check for flaws, the hand-push trolley carrying the massive engine moves on, and the next step is...
Well, as you see, the engine has made it right from the starting point to this one, and this, what you see, is the final resting place before it goes on and handed over. But one bit remains to be done on this engine, and that's this.
What I think also very unique for AMG is the one man, one engine. That means one person manufactures or builds, assembles the entire engine by himself. And the ultimate quality assurance of this guy or this girl, because we have boys and women doing that, is signing the engine. So the signature on the engine, if you open your AMG and you look onto this little plate, you can see the person who built your engine. I think that's the ultimate responsibility of your doing. So what you do is you get all the parts. They do have their own assembly station, and they go all through all these steps in the assembly line by themselves.
This is another engine which is ready to be mounted on another Mercedes. This is the final stage. Now it's going to the Mercedes factory to be mounted on.
You will not see too many finished cars here because the engines are shipped out to the Mercedes factory to be put in the cars there. But what you might catch a glimpse of here are special cars like the F1 safety cars, which come here for regular service, or heavily customized cars because AMG does aftermarket customization and even works on the demand of their choosy customers. And in fact, you can choose anything from the colors of the interiors to the body styling kits to impress the guy in the next lane that you are indeed driving an AMG car.
It's a common notion that AMG only builds the engines, but the fact is that AMG also builds all the support systems that go into a car, like the suspension system, the brakes, the exhaust, and even the radiators, to make sure that all the power that the engine produces actually gets down to the wheels so you can use it. And they do one more thing. They also customize, so you can get a car in the color you fancy, or you can change the interiors completely to suit your lifestyle.
You know, it starts with colors and also with interior parts. People bring in all kind of materials and say, I want to have like diamonds or whatever be built in my interior car. So I think there are a lot of crazy things.
It was really a wonderful experience to see thousands of engines being handcrafted and built with so much precision and passion. And it is this which has made AMG what it is today, pinnacle of driving performance. So next time you get in behind the wheels of an AMG car, make sure that you not only enjoy the experience, but also remember that this is one car which has been built with a lot of precision and of course passion by a dedicated group of people.